Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Well, hey there, friend. Welcome and thank you for tuning in to episode 296 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, of course, for lending me your ears right now. I know you have lots of choices of things to listen to and things to be doing right now, so I really do appreciate you joining me. It's going to be 100% worth it. I have an amazing guest on today and I can't wait to share her wisdom with you on this podcast. But before we get into this week's podcast, just a couple of things. Did you get a chance to listen to last week's episode? It was all around the updates on Instagram and Meta that we've been seeing recently, and how hashtags are definitely not going to be the answer anymore if we want more reach and more people to see our content. It was one of my most downloaded episodes I've done for a little while, which always happens when I talk about Instagram. It really does make me think I need more Instagram podcast episodes, because whenever I talk about Instagram, people are just so hungry for information on how to make that darn platform work best for them. So when you finish listening to this episode, throw back there and listen to episode 295, all about Instagram. And of course, I'd really like to work with you. You are a small business owner, you're listening to podcasts, you're clearly a bit of an action taker, and maybe if you need some help with your marketing, then I am the person for you. Perhaps you've been on social media for a little while as a business owner and it's just not bringing home the bacon, or maybe social media is the only marketing that you do. Which, on a bit of a side note, that's a bit of a yikes. We need to do more. Or maybe this thing called small business has just got you in a bit of a jam at the moment and you would seriously love someone to bounce ideas with or to help you take the next step. If that starts to sound like you a little bit, then I would really encourage you to book a discovery call and let's have a bit of a chat. So a discovery call is spending some time with me, letting me know about your business, what your biggest challenges are, and for me to go, okay, I'm the right person to help you, or I'm not the right person to help you, but I think you should go see this person, that person, or, undertake these activities and then come back to me. So it is a discovery call for us to discover whether or not we're a good fit to work with each other. Of course, I also have Hour of Power, where you can just pick my brain, I should say, for an hour. Maybe that's all you need to help you get to the next level. Or maybe you need more of a self-paced transformation program, which could be my 9-week marketing transformation program. Or you need some coaching and mentoring. Whatever you need, if I am the solution to what's holding you back in small business, then reach out. I would love to have a chat with you. Of course, if you listened to last week's episode and you're like, Jen, I'm over Meta, is there a better option? Well, if you're B2H, business to human, then maybe LinkedIn is the place for you. I am running a retreat in August with the amazing Jules Brooke, all around LinkedIn and how to use it as a business tool rather than a social media platform. If you're keen to take one of those places, there are only 7, then the link for that is in the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/296, or reach out and let's have a chat as to whether or not the LinkedIn retreat is for you. As I mentioned earlier, I do have an amazing guest for you today. Her name is Leticia Unruck, and she is just someone who has energy that I think you want to be around. Leticia is an energetics and strategy business mentor, and she calls herself a bit of a business doula. She's the founder of Essential Shift Consulting Proprietary Limited and a #1 best-selling author of Light It, How to Build Your Intuition and Build a Thriving Business, which is pretty much the crust of what we're talking about today. How to trust your intuition to build a thriving business. She teaches impact driven entrepreneurs how to weave intuition and strategy together to grow a sustainable business for people, profit, and of course, for the planet. Her passion is to bring a sense of sacred and intentionality into everyday life. She's a mother of two girls and lives in Sydney, and she also attempts to live the way she teaches to live, so practice what she preaches to many of her clients by creating a life that is aligned and sustainable. You are really going to love this chat with Letitia. So let's have a bit of a chat. I'll let you in on the chat that we had, and grab your pen and paper and have them ready, because this is a bit of a great episode for taking some notes. Letitia, I am stoked to have you on the podcast today. I know we are going to have a great chat, and I'm pretty sure my listeners going to love hearing from you as well. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jen.
Oh, big pleasure. Now, we've met in One Roof, which is a community that we both belong to, which is amazing. So shout out to One Roof. And after being in a room with you, which is kind of one of the things we do in One Roof, I wanted you to come on the podcast and have a chat, because I just thought my audience really needs to hear from you. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, so that they know how amazing you are, like I do.
Oh, thank you, Jen, for that. So my name is Laetitia Andrac. I am a business doula, which means I hold sacred space for women in business to birth the next iteration of their business, their life in pure alignment, like you give birth to a baby. And I carved this name for my work because I really weave together deep strategy, having over 16 experience in strategy consulting, being a general manager in big firms across Australia, designing strategy for their big vision, but also for their small startup investments through their VC fund and so on and so forth. So I weave together the strategy with deep spiritual and intuition practices coming from a healer family. So that's why I was like, business doula came to me. And this is what I do. I do a bit of magic and at the same time, deep strategy. And I see myself as being a bridge between ancient practices, ancient spiritual wisdom with modern AI, innovative ways of being and working.
Yeah, like that does sound really quite incredible. I'd love to dig a little bit deeper. How do you do that? How do you weave those ancient sort of premises of, I guess, being a human and running businesses with such a modern society, especially when we start talking about AI and all the big things that are coming our way, in the future?
Yes. So the way that I love to help anyone design their strategy in business is quite different to the traditional way that a business strategist will do. If I go back to my career when I was purely a business strategist, hired by big firm to design the strategy and their vision for the next 5-10 years, we would look outside of the business, looking at the 5 forces of Porter. I used to work for Monitor, and the founder of Monitor is Michael Porter. So the 5 forces of Porter, looking around what's happening, looking at the trends, looking at, the next big thing, all of that, which is really outward focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you design the strategy from this place. This is essential in strategy, but the way I do it is I actually start the other way around in my work. I start with the individuals first. So we start with the sacred CEO, as I call her. She is a sacred CEO, and she's going to give birth to the vision that is truly aligned with her own energetic blueprints. So I love to look at astrology. I'm an astrologer. I love to look at Ayurveda, knowing their doshas. I love to look at who they are, their core values, their visions, their mission, all of those kind of things. So starting with the individual, which phase are they in their life? Are they a mother? Are they in their MAGA phase, their crone phase? All of those kind of things kind of inform their unique strategy. And then once we have this, we can look outside of themselves and looking, okay, there is big trends around this in their industry. Let's look at harnessing this trend, but is it truly aligned with your path, your own life path? I look at numerology as well and all that. So it's starting from the individual, so within, and then looking out and then putting the two together. That's where it's really about putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And rather than having a strategy that is just informed by outside trends and, structural changes and conjunctural changes and things like that, like the macro and the micro economy, which I study a lot when I was at, in one of the best business school in France. It's about beyond micro and macro. What are the things that are happening within yourself and that you really stand for? Because as we know, we are both entrepreneur and we help a lot of entrepreneurs. It's actually a deep spiritual journey. It's a journey of soul searching. It's a journey that challenges us. And if we are not truly aligned with what we are meant to be doing, we just quit before we harness the benefit of the hard work that we put in place.
Yeah, I think there's so much wisdom in that for sure. I just think that, yes, we really do need to really have that passion, I guess, to stick with what it is that we're doing for sure. I think I just had, flashbacks to my part economic degree talking about micro and macro. It took me so long to get my head around the economy of micro and macro. I don't know looking back why I did, but it did. I remember very visually sitting at the dining room table with my head in books going, I don't get it. But anyway, I got it eventually. But
You did.
so tell us, like, you've worked for a lot of big organizations, you've talked business strategy. What is a business strategy? Like, I talk a lot about a marketing strategy, and one of the biggest questions I get is, well, what is a marketing strategy? So, what is a business strategy and why does it matter?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. Thank you so much for asking. So for me, a business strategy is actually your overarching constraint guiding principle of your business. What are you going after? So it's, if you think of a river, it's your riverbank. Where the river will flow, where the water will flow. And for me, it's like the guiding principle that will make you say yes to following down that strategy, that project, that initiative, or saying no to it. So the way I love to define a strategy is really that it's a set of guiding principles that are communicated in the business and adopted by the business. And then it will help anyone in your business, whether it's your team member, whether it's your partner in business, to allocate the right resources for the outcome. So the right marketing strategy is informed by the business strategy. The right operation strategy is informed by the business strategy. It's the right HR strategy is informed by the business strategy. So it's basically, you start with the business strategies, those big guiding principles for your business, and then you have all the other pieces of the puzzle that make decisions and allocate resources in alignment with this. And a lot of people confuse business strategy with planning. The strategy is a set of guiding principles, is what you're going after, what is the big vision, what is the things that you are aiming to achieve, and then the planning is different. It's how do you achieve that? And the strategy is really needs to be very clearly communicated. And that's why when I used to work in strategy consulting, we'd spend a lot of time doing, big retreat and big conference informing about the next strategy and what is, the strategy 2030 and the strategy 2040. But actually, even for small business, it's really relevant. Knowing what's your strategy. Do you want to be a business that is, very local and regional and helping people locally in person and all of that? This is part of your strategy. Or do you want to be international, fully online and evergreen, blah, blah, blah? It's a very different strategy. And then all of that will inform all the decision making in your business. So it's actually making decision ahead of the decisions that you have to make. Those guiding principles really help you decide, yeah, I'm going to do that, or I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, okay. Like, I know there is confidentiality and everything like that, but do you have any examples that you can share as to, or just a example of a business without naming them, as to what that looks like what that guiding principle strategy might have been and how I guess it flowed into other parts of the business?
Yes, definitely. So it's a business that allowed me to share some information about them, being mindful about not sharing too much detail. But I was involved in Samsara, which is a big scale up around infinite recycling, in helping them design their strategy for the next 10 years, as they've been, scaling the business and growing the business around infinite recycling. And how does that look like is, what do you want to achieve by 2040? What else a big thing that you want to be known for by 2040? And without disclosing those things, it's knowing those guiding principles. What are the big pillars of this strategy? And then once you have those big pillars, you can give it to the different teams. So then each team, you know, is the operation team and the risk team and the how do you call that? Like the engineer team while developing the molecule and all of that can then take those principles, those key pillars into their own planning, into their own project to make it happen. So we have like designed the big strategy for each of the entity to then go and walk away with this strategy. When I was a strategy general manager in strategy and innovation for Telstra, we would do this kind of refresh strategy every year. So we had the big strategy for the next 10 years, and then we'll chunk it down 5 years, 1 year, and we will like regroup all together and redesign the strategy. So it works for big business, smaller business like Samsara that I mentioned, but even as a solopreneur, I have some clients who are solopreneur and deciding on where you invest your energy, your time, your money, and so on, because you have a clear strategy is really powerful. So it's one example that I'm allowed to share, and I'm actually sharing it on the masterclass that I'm giving tomorrow around how intuition and strategy together can help you in business. It's the example of Jade Wan, who I helped create a new revenue stream, which is our Instagram Growth Club. It was during COVID. She couldn't do any photography anymore. Everyone was in lockdown. And what we do is like, okay, so what is the key strategy for your business? What is the key things that you want to focus on and develop around? And it was all about, I want to create a community. I want to educate people on how to use Instagram for growth. I want to do more than just photography, and I want to do it in my own way and all of that. So we designed the strategy for that to happen. And then we started putting the pieces of the puzzle together to grow it to the stage that she is at now. But I was here for the inception as her business doula. And then she's so talented that she walked away with it and grew it to what it is now. So it's about, and still to this day, and then she commented yesterday on One Roof, she goes back to this strategy. So it's something that is guiding you in the long time.
Okay. I love that. And Jade is amazing. She did my photos for me. For anyone following at home, she did my photos for me for my book launch. So she's just incredible.
Yeah. Your photos are gorgeous. She's so talented. Yeah. She did the photo for my book as well. She's an incredible photographer.
Yeah, she is, and an incredible small business owner, and just so generous as well. I know that you talk a lot about intuition and sort of trusting our intuition. So I think for anyone listening to this podcast, my listener might be thinking, I get it, but how do I know what those guiding principles are? And I'm assuming that has a little bit to listening to your intuition of what it might be telling you, and maybe what it's not telling you. Is that has sort of like, how do we trust that intuition? How do we enhance that intuition?
So intuition, I love to say that it's a muscle we all have. So it's all about strengthening it and working with it. So if you've been someone who studied, you know, deep mathematics and, you know, anything very rational, you may have been told that intuition has nothing to do with this and you shouldn't trust your intuition and all of that. So you have a bit more work to do. It's as if you've never exercised a muscle and straight away you want to lift 300 kilo, you're not going to manage that. So it's about starting little by little. Whereas I grew up in a family of healer in the south of France, in a very small town where my intuition has always been very nourished. And so for me, I lost track a bit about my intuition when I was studying and going up the ladder of strategy consulting and all that, where it was like no intuition, only rational and political. Forget about the intuition here. But you know, I reclaimed it, but it was easier for me to reconnect with it. So for whoever is listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not intuitive, it's not for me, know that we are all intuitive. It's just about reconnecting with that muscle. So then how do we reconnect with that muscle? You start with small decision. Like anything, we start with small decision and we tune in and we feel into the signal in our body. I love to call that recalibrating your inner compass. So it's about reconnecting with your own body, with your own expression of a yes in your body. And for some people, it may be some butterfly in their belly. For some people, it's a tingle in their crown of the head. For some people, it's some feeling hot in their hands, sweaty palm. It's very different. I worked with thousands of people, and every time it's a different way of expressing your intuition. So there is not like, yeah, everyone says gut feeling, but it's not necessarily your gut that will tell you a yes or a no. It's about connecting with what is your response. So start with a small decision where you're like, okay, what do I feel like having for lunch? And I know when I say that it's ridiculous as an entrepreneur, like, but this is like the last important question in my day. But you can start with this little thing, like lifting a 5 kilo before you lift a 300 push thing. It's starting with small thing. And if you're not very sure, just flip a coin. You flip a coin and then you see if it's tail or head, and you're like, oh, my body is happy with tail. I said it was tail, so it's a yes. Okay, that's how it manifests in my body. So it's reconnecting with this. And then you can start making bigger decision and bigger decision and bigger decision. In my life, I have made the biggest decision only based on intuition, from moving to Australia to launching this business to choosing to write a book. It was purely intuitive. We talked about this. It was not on my bucket list. It was not something I wanted to do. It just came to me intuitively and I had to do it. And I'm not an isolated example of that. We know that Jeff Bezos shares a lot about how he made his biggest decision, like buying the Washington Post, launching Amazon and all of that based on his gut feeling and his intuition. We know that it's the same thing with Richard Branson, with the same thing with Samantha Wills, who closed her empire, a jewelry empire, based on her intuition. But we also know like smaller business owners that we can more relate to, like some of my clients made their biggest decision based on their intuition as well. So you start with small decision and then you go with a big one. And I love these things that Sarah Blakely, who is the founder of Spank in the US, shared a little while ago, which is something that you will never find in a spreadsheet that is her best decision-making is actually her body response. So her intuition is really guiding her, and that's how she launched Spank and all of that. So it's like you can create empire based on this intuitive nudge if you follow through with it and stay really on track with it. So it's about daily check-in. For me, every day, for instance, when we met and then we're like, okay, let's do a podcast swap. My body was like, yes, for sure. We do that. Jen is awesome. Let's do it. And now, we see we're connected through Jane and all that. It's like, oh my goodness, such a good call. And when you start doing the big, the small, the medium decision in that way, it's just so much easier. There is no headache.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think so much of my life is based on, well, I would call it my gut feeling, but my intuition of just, this doesn't feel right for me anymore. It's time to go. Or this does feel right for me. I need to do it. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't mean that I don't get nervous, and it doesn't mean that I don't get butterflies, but yes, there is that. There's probably only a couple of decisions in my life and it's kind of like I went against it. And I still think about those decisions 30, 40 years later. So clearly I wasn't listening to my intuition back then when I made those decisions, but that's okay. And I think it's really interesting because when you're talking about your guiding principles and, I guess your riverbank and all of that sort of thing, like it really, it's got to sit right with you, doesn't it? Like it really needs to feel comfortable and right. And, that intuition needs to be there, that gut feeling of, yep, this is the right thing for me.
Exactly. And this is where a lot of people that are actually outsourcing their intuition, as I call it, like really going after someone else's recipe for success, or someone else like 5 steps to this or 7 steps through that, etc. They lose themselves in the process because maybe they're building momentum, maybe they're growing something, but it's not their business. It's another 9 to 5, or I should say 24/7, 7 days a week that they're creating. But it's just they are not following their own path. And I truly believe that we all have our own path, and it's about honoring that path and finding it and creating this unique path, this unique riverbank where you can go and enjoy the journey rather than trying to, be on the highway the whole time or be on the hamster wheel the whole time because someone told you you need to do this and this and this and this and that, and that's how you'll be successful. But what is your own definition of success first? What does your strategy tells you to do? What's your unique vision? What's the path that you want to follow? And what's your intuition telling you? And sometimes I have a lot of clients coming to me, they've been in business for 5, 7, 10 years, and it's like, I've completely lost spark. I've lost the mojo. I've arrived where I thought I wanted to be. And is this it? I don't like it. I want to quit this business. I want to create another one. So let's create another one that is truly aligned with your own strategy, your own vision, and your own intuition, and making sure that, of course, you're making money and you're enjoying the journey and you're not, staying on track with someone else's blueprint and vision.
Yeah,
there's a lot
absolutely.
of outsourcing of that. I love outsourcing, and we spoke about this before. I'm a huge outsourcer. I love leading teams. I love leading, my AI bots and all of that. I love having a lot of people working with me, for me in my business and in my life. But one thing that I will never outsource is my own intuition.
I didn't even know how you could do that. But anyway, maybe that's a conversation for another day. But I love that your business is Essential Shift. Like that's predominantly what we're talking about, isn't it? We're talking about a shift, and we're talking about an essential shift to align our business to, I guess, somewhat who we are and what we want to achieve.
Definitely. And so the name, so initially my business, I sold the project, and then I had to find a business name and create something very quickly for this project that I had sold, like working backwards and creating a business backwards.
Love it.
So my business initially was called Focus Draft for about 24 hours. And then Essential Shift as a name dropped, and I was like, this is exactly it. I'm about focusing on what's truly essential. So we all know the Pareto law about the 20% of your effort create 80% of the result. I'm even lazier. It's about the 5% that create the 95%. And so it's like focusing really on the things that are really the strategies that really works for you, your business, your audience. And it means like doing a lot of research, being very curious, knowing yourself, but also knowing your audience and who you're serving, and the innovation. I love to use the 10 types of innovation, like making sure you're doing something that is freaking so unique that then it's your place of the internet or of the shops that you're, spotlighting on. So then you just focus on those 5%, which create 95%. So Essential Shift is about finding that thing, that goal that is within you, that you all have access to, whether it's a product, a service, or a software. And often it starts from knowing your why, knowing what you stand for, knowing what you're really, really passionate about, and you can talk about for hours. And for me, it's, strategy, intuition, and the stars. So it's like, okay, it all makes sense now. But it's finding this thing and then focusing on that and being so passionate about it that you will not find it boring, even though it's quite boring to always say the same thing and do the same thing. But it's actually crafting, becoming a craft, the best at your craft, mastering your craft. Like we have a lot of artisan, I don't know the English word for that now, like craftsmen in France. And it's actually, they do that for their whole life. And then it's the most beautiful craftsmanship that you get, whether it's a piece of jewelry or a handbag and I'm really, willing to help everyone find this essential shift back into what is their unique craft. What's your craft that you can master?
Wow. I think people might have to listen to this podcast episode twice just to get the gold out of what it is that you're saying. Thank you so much for being so generous. I'd love to hear, just before we finish off, I'd love to hear a little bit about your book and about your podcast, in case my listener would like to know a little bit more about those two things as well.
Oh, thank you so much. So my book is called Light It: How to Trust Your Intuition and Build a Thriving Business. So it's a book which is a mix between strategy for business, spirituality with intuition, and self-development, where I share my own journey of recovering from burnout and really reconnecting with my own intuition and my own path. So it sits in between different categories. So if you are, willing to listen to it, it's available on audiobook, or you can buy it on Amazon Audible, wherever you want actually to read it. And then if you want to listen to my podcast, it's called the Essential Shift Podcast. where I do solo episode, and I also interview wonderful guests like Jen very soon.
Perfect. And they can just listen to that on any of the good
Any
podcast
platform.
apps.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Letitia, for coming on today. I think it's been great. I've really enjoyed. I think it's a little bit different to, like, you know, some of the episodes I've had talking about strategy. It's just gone maybe one or two levels a little bit deeper. But I really think my listener will really, I guess, sit back and have a bit of a think about, you know, is the business that they're running aligned with where they want it to go? You know, does it feel like, I guess, them? Does it feel like their business? So thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to quickly pop in there before we finish up?
I just want everyone to understand that your strategy is unique to you.
Mhm.
There is not one business strategy that will work. Whatever the guru are telling you, there is one business strategy to grow a 7-figure business. There's actually thousands, millions of different business strategy to grow a million, multi-million, 100 million, $1,000 business. It's like whatever you want to create, there is a unique strategy that works for you. So don't trust anyone telling you there is one business strategy to get there, because this is just MLM and copycat, and this is not how you will love doing business. Be creative.
Ah, beautiful. Great way to finish off for sure. Thank you so much. And I will have all the links to your things in the show notes. And thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. I really hoped you enjoyed that interview and took something away from it that you weren't expecting. I absolutely loved bringing it to you. But I'd like to know, what was your biggest takeaway? You know, for me, aligning my business values and my goals and my own intuition was a really good reminder, whilst, you know, not only interviewing Letitia, but listening back to it later. So that was my biggest takeaway. But what was yours? I'd love you to, you know, send me an email, send me a DM on socials, which is a direct message, or jump into the Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group and let me know your biggest takeaway. If you haven't joined the Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group, then come and join the fun over there. I'd love to see you over there. But that's it for episode 296. If you did love this episode and found it valuable, I would love for you to take 30 seconds out of your day and leave me a rating and a review, if that's possible where you're listening, and take it to the next level and maybe share this podcast with another friend. You could email the link to another friend, or you could just put it up on your social media that you listen to Letitia and Jen have a chat all about aligning your business values, and tag both of us and allow your community to see that you're listening to that great podcast episode simply by doing that. Okay, that's it. I will see you next week for episode 297. I cannot believe we're getting close to 300. I don't know what I'm going to do for 300, but I better make it special. In the meantime, if we aren't friends on social, please come and find me. I'll be on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Threads, wherever you would like to find me, except on Twitter X. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.